Hey, this is Annie, and today we're learning how to create a dancing animation, like this candy corn here. This is a tidbit from my course, and let's get lucid. So in order to do that, what I have to do is I have to start unclipping some of my layers. And right now, it looks a little bit goofy, but that's okay, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna put another clipping mask over it, and we're gonna pick a darker color. So this is orange. What you can do too is the color drop tool, where you can take the color by clicking onto. So what you're clicking onto is, let me draw on it really quick. Let's see, where's my pencil? Okay, I can't find it on my screen, but where it's located is, it's located right, whoa. Okay, it's located right here. So if you click onto that, what you can do is click and hold. You can color pick, right? And the color that you want automatically becomes that color if you just let go. So if you look over here, you'll see that once you let go, it changes that color on the top right. So I want to make a shade for this orange. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the disk, and I'm going to drop it a little bit lower so that the color is darker. And what I'll do is I'm going to pick up oil pastel brush. And what I'll also do is I'm going to get rid of this, which is where I drew all my arrows to show you where things were at. But I'm just going to start putting that darker orange onto my drawing. And this kind of adds really nice texture. You could kind of see that it's a little bit gritty. But I think that this adds a lot more character to your artwork. And it doesn't make it so that it's just super plain. It adds a little bit more dimension to it. And that's really nice because then the drawing doesn't look super flat. And what I usually like to do too is I like to push in a lighter color too. So I like to do, it's like a light color and a dark color, and I usually like to do the highlight, which is the lighter color, up on the top, and the darker color, usually I push it to the bottom. So maybe it's something like that. And then what you can do is, so if you take layer 8 and 4, for me, if I just do that motion of squeezing it together, it becomes one layer. And this is nice because then I could just, oops, okay, so right now it's clipping onto this, but if I clip it back onto that, then it becomes something like this. And obviously I didn't do my yellow yet, so I'm gonna work on my yellow. So I'm gonna hide that layer so I don't get super confused. Unclip it, open up a new layer, and clip it. More shadows and more highlights. So this is shadow. You can see that it's a little bit darker. And you can do something similar where you have your shadows and you have a bit of highlight, right? And automatically, just by adding these textures in, and again, 2 pinch, 8 and 3 pinch. And what I was saying was that once you start adding the element of shadows and highlights, you begin to see that the drawing just looks a lot nicer because it's not flat, right? There's a little bit more texture to it, and that makes it look a little bit nicer. So we can do that with the white as well. With the white, I like to add like a little, it's like a tinge of blue. So I don't want to add gray, because sometimes it makes it look a little bit too dark. So maybe it's something like this. And it's a little bit subtle. I don't know if you can notice it, but maybe you can do something similar with yours as well. And okay, I lied. I'm gonna add in a little bit of gray, just a little. And I also like adding in shadows and highlights to the eyes and the mouth. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that really quick. Eyebrows as well. You could kind of see it happening right now. And then a lighter color. And then of course, you can do the cheeks. Okay, so I have a lighter color as well. So maybe it's something like this, and I'm gonna combine the eyes with the cheek. And I'm gonna move that up because right now I don't see it. Okay, so something like this is what I have. And that's kind of my candy corn, and maybe I'll change it a little in that I think there's a little bit too much of a highlight here, so I'm gonna try to dim it down a little. Okay. I might change the background color so that it pops out a little bit more. Okay. So now that we have our candy corn, we can also begin drawing in arms and legs. But before we do that, let's also group together all of our elements so that it's one frame of a candy corn. So to do that, we're gonna drop it in. See, that's one group. And we're just gonna keep adding to that group. So a quick tip, we went over this, but in order to drop it as one group, what we have to do is wait, hold it, and then drop it, and wait until we see the blue, and then drop it in. So that becomes one group. And of course, when we do groups, what happens is our clipping mask comes undone sometimes. So we'll have to go back in and clip. Oops, that was not a clipping mask. That was just the regular mask. But do a clipping mask for all of them. And sometimes too, the layers might be unorganized. So you'll have to reorganize. And then I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this candy corn. And let's call this candy corn frame 1. So that's our candy corn, and remember we said we were going to do a quick little animation of moving hands and moving feet. So we can begin to draw in some simple hands and feet. So I'm going to do a technical pen, and let's say I kind of want my feet and arm to carry the same blue color as the eyes. So then let me just place it underneath. And when it's underneath, the leg becomes in the back instead of where it was initially, which was in the front. So I want it in the back. And maybe this is what it kind of looks like. And then for arms, maybe it's something like this. And let's see. Feel free to make up, you know, what your arms might look like. Maybe it's arms like this, or maybe it's, you know, straight up fingers. But obviously you can choose what your arm looks like and what your hand looks like as well. So, you know, there are variations of arms. Maybe you want something like that as your arm instead, or maybe you want simple stick figure arms, which is probably what I'm gonna choose just because it's easier to animate as well. But if you want, again, it's up to you how you develop your character, right? So this course is all about, you know, developing your own style as well as your creative freedom. So I'm gonna erase what I drew because it looks really silly, but I'm just gonna maybe instead what I want is wiggly arms so that the motion that I want my little candy corn to have is kind of a waving arm. So that's what maybe this looks like. And again, remember, because this is all about how you would like it to look, feel free to change it anytime as well. So maybe I'm going back to this. I don't know, what looks better, this or this? I can't tell. So if I can't tell, what I like to do sometimes is just keep drawing over and over again until I feel like it's at a comfortable place. And maybe I don't want little arms, that looks weird to me. Maybe it's circles. So I kind of get a kick out of having little circle hands instead of actual fingers, but whatever you get a kick out of, you could do that. And maybe I'll change later on, but for the sake of teaching you how a wiggly animation works, for right now, maybe I'll stick with this. Maybe, you know what? I'm gonna add fingers. Okay, I changed my mind. Let's do a little bit of fingers. But for the sake of this course, I'll just stick with this for now, and we can start doing a really simple animation. So in order to do that, let's throw in layer 10, which was, I'm gonna rename it. This is hand and feet or leg. Gonna put that into candy corn frame 1. So this is our frame 1. And remember what I said where the background might look a little bit plain right now, but what we can do is after this class, you can still work on it and you can add in textures to put onto your background. And of course, if you want, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be adding tiny little candy corn as the pattern for the back and just fill it up. So it's a big dancing candy corn, and around it is little tiny candy corns kind of just watching the big candy corn dance. So that's frame 1. And in order to start doing our animation, let's always at least maybe have 3 frames as a minimum, but of course you can have more frames. So what we'll do is slide it to the left, right, and duplicate. So we've duplicated candy corn frame 1, and what I'm going to do is hide candy corn frame 1 and go back into candy corn frame 1, which is very confusing. So what I'm going to do, let's rename this frame 2. I'm going to go into candy corn frame 2, click into it, and notice I have hand and leg, and in order to make this less confusing for myself, I'm going to rename it candy corn layer frame 1. So this is hand and leg frame 1, and I'm going to make a new layer, and I'm going to turn down the opacity of hand and leg frame 1. So turn that down, go back to layer 23, or very confusing, so I'm going to call it hand and leg 2, because hand and leg 2 is corresponding with candy corn frame 2. And later we're going to delete this layer, so let's go back to this layer, hand and leg 2, and let's begin drawing over it. So maybe instead of that, maybe the motion is this. Maybe it's like this. Maybe the leg is kind of the same space, but notice I didn't trace completely the same because I want to get a little bit of that motion to be more noticeable. So I finished hand and leg 2. I'm going to slide that, and I'm going to take out my first frame, or the frame 1 hand and leg. And so if you want to see a test of what that looks like, you can always go into, let's see, it's right here, which is the wrench tool, and then you can click into Animation Assist. And of course, from here, what you can do is turn on your frame, and then you can play it. And that's really fast, so I'm going to slow it down. So that's kind of, with 2 frames, that's what we're trying to achieve, right? We're trying to achieve a little dancing motion, and this is how my candy corn is dancing right now. It's looking a little silly.
And that's kind of the basis of how to create this effect. If you thought this was helpful, please do share this, and until next time, take care and keep shining.